Welcome to the ACEVEDO video store. Today we're going to review Redbeard from 1965, directed by Akira Kurosawa, based on a book of the same name written by Shugoro Yamamoto for its 60th anniversary. The story is about a doctor visiting a clinic thinking that he's going to provide a small amount of help until he's given the news that he's going to be specifically hired for the clinic and it's going to be a permanent job organized by the head doctor of the clinic named Redbeard, or that's his nickname. Although hesitant to this offer of working at the clinic, he decides to go with it, and throughout the film we see his experiences in working with the clinic and with the many occurring patients that appear throughout the film. So that's the basic plot of the movie, without trying to spoil it and all that. The movie's pretty good. I had a lot of expectations for this movie because Don Ritchie, famous Japanese film historian, he wrote the book about Akira Kurosawa and said like this is the pinnacle where Kurosawa's creativity and storytelling has reached its peak. I don't really think it's the peak Kurosawa film, and the story kind of comes into that and all that. It's loose going. There's not like an overarching like plot. For example, in The Hidden Fortress, that story is about having to transport a princess safely to another land. This story is about, the main character, the doctor, played by Yuzio Kayama. There's no, overarching plot where he's trying to, escape the clinic and all that. It's more like a go-with-the-flow type of situation. But we do see him, progress as a character and being more accepted in working in the clinic itself and all, getting used to the work routine as well. It's more similar on a story structure with something like Dersu Uzala, where that's a similar thing where there isn't an overarching plot. But I still do enjoy the movie. The acting is really well done and all that, with Yuzio Kayama, of course, who previously appeared in Sanjuro with Toshio Mifune, who plays not a main character but a secondary character. Although being a secondary character, his face appears larger on the poster and all of that. So I did like the performances. There's two child characters. They have some, large roles in the films and all that, much more later in the movie. And they do great performances and all that. There's an 8-year-old kid that appears, much more late into the movie, played by, hopefully I get this name correctly, Yoshitaka Zushi. And he will later appear in Dodesku Den, Dreams, and Mamadeo, so I think he was a favorite of Kurosawa and all that, where he appeared in, his later works. Speaking of those kid characters, I believe, not the 8-year-old kid whose name is Choji, the second character is a girl, and apparently she's not even in the original book. I have not read the original book for this review and all that. I didn't even know it was based on a book until I watched the movie, and I was looking at the bonus features, wait, it's based on a book? Oh, that's interesting. And apparently Kurosawa did a lot of changes from when adapting the book, such as inserting new characters. I did look this up. You actually could read an English translation of the book, and actually it is still in print, and it just came out back in 2023. So it took a long while to get an English translation of the book. The performances is also helped by the fact that when they were filming the movie, they apparently used 5 cameras to film each scene. So there's a comment from Toshio Mifune saying that he couldn't just act one camera angles. He had to make sure to get all his movements to be present in all those angles and all that. The set design is also really fantastic in the film. Apparently they reuse some sets from Yojimbo and Sanjuro, so they appear in the movie. I'm not too much of a keen viewer to recognize, oh, that's the building from Yojimbo, or that's the building from Sanjuro and all that. And talking about the set, it is quite large. Apparently it was large enough to make a significant presence in the backlot of Toho. It was basically a village built in the backlot, and apparently there were alleyways and additional buildings that were on the set but never filmed. And there's a comment from Don Ritchie I remember before seeing this movie, is that there isn't a lot of wide shots. There's mostly medium shots, or the usual close-ups and all that. But there isn't a wide shot where they're trying to show off look how big our movie set is. I was sort of thinking about that they're watching the movie, but I wasn't too concerned where's that wide shot? Because it feels like they're mostly mediums or close-ups and all that, just focus on the characters and not focus on the set itself, which probably is a good thing to do. And a lot of work went into building the set. Apparently Kurosawa will go to the backlot himself and find the oldest pieces of wood that he could find, and incorporate that to the set. The gate to the clinic and all that, that's built with mostly very old wood that they were able to find in the backlot. And a fun fact, apparently Kirk Douglas some point visited the set and all that and was quite impressed. On the subject of set design, I have to bring this up because it was like a thing that kind of just like, connected all the dots. It's like, oh, that reminds me of this. In this one scene, the main character, Yukio Kamiyama, he's like treating the girl in the clinic, and he has this candle with like one part of it is like hidden behind like this piece of paper and all that. So it's like diffusing the light of the candle, and that just made me think, aha, I know that. So this is going to be a short tangent, but bear with me here. So in Dracula, the Bela Lugosi film and all that, when Dracula is entering like a room and he's trying to go up to the girl and all, there's a lamp with a giant piece of cardboard attached to it. Like one side of the lamp has this like piece of cardboard just like blocking the light, and it's like pointing it towards like the woman in the bed. I don't think anybody has a concrete reason on why it's there.
The cardboard is set dressing. It's meant to be a way of keeping the light out of the character Mina's face as she sleeps while the little lamp serves as a night light. That's why it's consistently and unashamedly present in all the scenes in Mina's bedroom.
But apparently, like someone mentioned in an audio commentary saying like, oh, when nurses back then, to help the patient sleep, they would have something to diffuse the light so the light doesn't get into the patient's eye and wake him up while the nurse sits by and reads a book and all that. And that kind of makes sense when you look at the design in Redbeard and all that, because it looks like it's like made for that candle stand. But when you look at Dracula, it's literally just clamped onto the lamp. I think James Rolfe, in his video where he talks about this, if it was such a common practice, why there was not like a custom lampshade where you could just like turn over and it would diffuse the light on one side but keep the light open to the other side. The cinematography is really well done and all that, and although like it doesn't show the scale of like the massive set they apparently had, I felt like mostly it was normalized. We didn't need to see the scale of the village. We just know that they're in a village and all, even though it's like it's back on like a backlot and like, the interior's on a soundstage. The cinematography kind of really helped that, whereas like it just brings you into the movie. Like any other movie that is done to the best, you're not thinking that it's a studio backlot. Although there's this one flashback scene where I was watching it, I was like, where the hell did they film this? It's just like the background really caught me off guard. It's like, what is that? What's that in the background? I'm not sure what it is. I was really fascinated by it. It's like, what is this place? Like, where are they standing at? The soundtrack of the film is also really great. It's not very present throughout the movie. It's like it appears and comes and goes. Like it appears when it needs to appear. That's the best way to put it. So the soundtrack is created by Masaru Sato, and if I remember correctly, I think he did the soundtrack for Submerged in Japan from 1973, which is a really great Toho film, based on a book as well. And there's this one soundtrack cue from Redbeard that sounds quite similar to this other soundtrack cue in Submerged in Japan. So I was wondering if it's like a similar thing like what Akira Kurosawa did, where you could hear like the small part of the theme for Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster from 1964. It could be heard in Giant Monster Baron in 1958, and it just like reuse and incorporate into like another like music track. Overall, it's a pretty good movie, so I'll give it not the highest score, but I would give it 4 out of 5 stars. So I have the Criterion DVD release of the movie. It's the most recent home video release of the film, and I forgot, when did this DVD came out? It came out in 2002. Recent as in like over 2 decades and all. And it's still in print. They're still making these in print. I think this is the newer printings. The DVD case is, very slim, because I noticed with when you buy like older Criterion DVDs, like from like pre-2005, pre-2010 used, it's like the black case or maybe clear, if depending on the title and all that. But a standard release would be like a black case, and it's going to be like a thicker DVD case. Sort of like I'm not sure if there's an example I could pull out around me. Oh, I have one, yes. This Yojimbo DVD. Yeah, you see that it's like a thicker case and feels heavier. But this, it's like lightweight and it's like thinner. It has a booklet. I did read it, and I found the writings to be interesting and all that. It has like a little essay by Donald Ritchie. I think some of it is like as an excerpted from his book, The Films of Akira Kurosawa. This book came out back in 1965, and this is actually the first edition from my college library, and it states here May 1993. I believe this is the first US exposure to Redbeard, because the last chapter is about Redbeard, and this came out in August of 1965, so a few months after Redbeard premiered in April, but it didn't start showing in US theaters until like 1966 of January, which it played in like the La Brea Toho Theater in Los Angeles. I found the quote where, like, saying the peak of, like, the Kurosawa films. I told Kurosawa that I sensed that he had come to some sort of conclusion, some sort of resting place. He has pushed his style what to be in its ultimate. At the same time, he had continued, and it would seem, completed the theme, which is the theme that has been throughout his entire film career. It might even be called the summation of his work, because in Redbeard, he had vindicated his humanism and his compassion. So that excerpt there made me have, like, high hopes for this film and all that, because although this is not, like, quote-unquote, like, a peak Kurosawa film, or, like, the end-all sort of conclusion of Kurosawa's, like, creativity and the way of his storytelling, because of course he made, like, great movies afterwards, like Dersuzawa, Kagemusha, Ran, Dreams. I haven't seen Dreams yet, but I've seen the other three. But I also heard, like, critical praise for Dreams. This movie, researching it, is sort of like the beginning of the end type of situation. Just like an era of movies has ended and a new era of movies have began, which is kind of sentiment for Japanese cinema at the time. So after this film completed, the contract with Toho has expired with both Mifune and Kurosawa, and they went on their separate ways. This is their last movie they actually worked on together, and I'm not too sure about, like, if there was some sort of fallout. I didn't do too much research about, like, why they didn't work with each other again, because I did read little excerpts from this book here, The Emperor, the Wolf, The Lives and Films of Akira Kurosawa, written by Stuart Galbraith. In the book, it mentions how right before filming began, or around the time filming just began, Kurosawa had to attend the funeral for Yasujiro Ozu, who's a Japanese filmmaker. I still have to see his movies and all that. And by the time filming wrapped for Redbeard, Kurosawa began trying to do more international projects, such as Runaway Train, which ended up being canceled, then working on Tora Tora Tora, which then he was fired from. Then he made his next film, Dodeshiku Den, which was a box office and critical failure. In Japan, at least. I'm not sure about the US. And he tried to kill himself, but he thankfully survived. And he was offered by the Soviet Union to do Dersuzawa, and I'll probably say the rest is history from there. But according to Stuart Galbraith, in his audio commentary for Dersuzawa, which is a great movie, I highly recommend to watch it, and along with the audio commentary from Imprint Films, he mentions how, like, the Japanese film critics, they give, like, mixed reviews for his later films, such as Dersuzawa, Kagemusha, Ran, for his later films post Redbeard, because Redbeard was such a great movie, and it seems like everybody has, like, a bad taste in their mouths after he failed to do Runaway Train, he failed to do Tora Tora Tora, and now he couldn't, like, just rely on Japanese film studios to make his newer movies. He had to get, co-productions and all that, like, such as with Kagemusha with 20th Century Fox. Dersuzawa, you had to go to the Soviet Union to make it. And, like, with Ran, there's like a French film company had to be involved as well. And then you have Toshio Mifune, who is continuing working as an actor, because after Redbeard, his 17-year contract with Toho expired, and he started doing international productions such as Grand Prix. Tell the Pacific is a real great one. Also at the time, like, the other major part about Japanese cinema is the Godzilla movies, the kaiju movies. They were more geared towards kids. In 1965, that's when Invasion of Astro Monster came out. But afterwards, it was Son of Godzilla, Destroy All Monsters, Godzilla's Revenge, more movies gearing towards children. By the time, like, in the late 60s, the Japanese cinema was kind of, like, weighing down because of television. Everybody was like, we could just watch movies on television. So Redbeard is not, like, the pinnacle Kurosawa film, but it is the beginning and end of Japanese cinema, because Kurosawa basically had a winning streak since, like, Rashomon. Great movie, great movie, great movie, great movie, great movie. Then we get Dodeshiku Den. I still have to see Dodeshiku Den. I'm planning to review it later in this year for its anniversary. Overall, it's a pretty good movie. I suggest watching it. Of course, if you live in the US, the only way of getting it is, of course, with the Criterion DVD here. There's a Blu-ray in Japan, and I'm not too entirely sure about the quality of it. I would love to see, Criterion re-release this movie on Blu-ray or maybe 4K. Although I have heard rumors of apparently Criterion Toho are not in good relations right now because of the Seven Samurai 4K. I'm not too entirely sure about that. I'm not going to dwell on them too much, but hopefully, at least this movie gets like a HD Blu-ray release eventually in the upcoming years. And that goes with the other Criterion Kurosawa movies that are still stuck on DVDs. So that's all of the review. Have a nice day, and later on, come back to our video store.